party people. Welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, the actual play RPG podcast where the gaming table is always set for two. I'm your host as always, Jeff Stormer. This week on the show, I am joined by Michael Ornelas for a game of Inmortal Unmasked in the main event. Michael is the host of the Fine Dining podcast, in which he deep dives into the stories behind your favorite chain restaurants like Cracker Barrel, IHOP, Chipotle, before reviewing them with a new guest each week in search of the perfect 5 out of 10 fine dining experience. The newest season of Fine Dining just dropped yesterday. You can find a link in the show notes. Michael went to Casa Bonita in Colorado with Ifi Nwadiwe, the restaurant that was very recently reopened by Matt Parker and Trey Stone. An episode premise which you can hear me lose my mind about on the actual episode. You can find more information about the Fine Dining podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or you can check out the latest episode in the show notes. Inmortal Unmasked in the main event, the cover song edition by friend of the show, Steph Beck-Fay, is a game about professional wrestling. It is a sold-out show at Corrigan Hall. The lights dim, your entrance music comes on the loudspeakers. You are Inmortal, one of the greatest professional wrestlers alive, and 2,000 people have come to see your last match. It is a 2-player role-playing game about the career of 2 legendary Japanese wrestlers. It's a really beautiful storytelling game experience, and we both threw ourselves fully into the experience. I had so much fun with this game. I think you're going to love it. You can find more information about the game also in the show notes. Before we dive in, a quick shout out to our newest Patreon backer, friend of the show, Darcy Ross. Thank you so much for supporting the show, as well as all of the other things that I work on. Patreon backers get access to bonus episodes of Party of One, which you'll hear me talk about in just a moment. Special side series like Party of One Plus One, which is our spotlight on sequels and returning guests, and Party of None, which is our spotlight on solo games, as well as other projects that come up as I work on them throughout the year. You can find more information at patreon.com/JeffStormer. But first, Present Jeff here with a quick update about what you can find at patreon.com/JeffStormer. Ignore what I may or may not say later in the episode if it's a different URL. In case you missed it, we launched a brand new Party of One side series on Patreon. I've wanted to do more sequel episodes and returning guests for a really long time, and I realized I could just do that on Patreon. And thus, Party of One Plus One deeper dives into the games, guests, and stories that we feature on the main feed. There are 3 episodes available right now on Patreon. That is Conflict of Interest with Senda, which is a gay, lesbian, forbidden romance spy drama. I can't sell that to you better than that. A special extra playthrough of Pale Dot with the game's designer Devin Nelson, and Jadzia Axelrod, my dear friend and creator of Galaxy the Prettiest Star, joins me for a special Galaxy fanfiction one-shot. All 3 episodes are really, really wonderful. We're releasing these episodes somewhere between bi-weekly and monthly, and that's on top of early access to Party of One episodes and games as they come out, the eventual return of Party of None, which is our solo actual-ish play podcast, and a whole lot more. You can find all of that at patreon.com/JeffStormer. Also, an ad. This episode is brought to you by Empress of Dust, a new science fantasy novel by Alex Kingsley. The novel is about a future where giant crabs have taken over the Earth and only one human city remains, and it follows a trans boy who gets lost in the desert wasteland and must befriend the crabs in order to return home. You can probably hear the excitement in my voice right there, because that's a fucking pitch. But also it keeps getting cooler, because there is also an accompanying tabletop RPG, Creatures of Ruin, in which you play as a human or a crab monster who also has magic powers, because of course they do. Both the game and novel have original monster illustrations that look sick as fuck, and are being published by Space Wizard Science Fantasy, a small press that specializes in queer science fiction and fantasy. The novel is available right now at Amazon or your bookstore of choice. The game will be available soon. You can find more information about both at spacewizardsciencefantasy.com or alexkingsley.org, and you can check out more of Alex's games at alexyquest.itch.io. And truly, one more time, that's a fucking pitch. And with all that said, let's go ahead and throw it over to me in the past so that he can get started with the show. Take it past me. Thanks, future me. I'm really, truly so excited. This is going to be an episode where I just get to let it all hang out. I'm sitting down with Michael Ornelas. Michael, thank you so much for coming on Party of One.
How's it going, Jeff? Can I ask, is your real name Jeff Stormer? Because it sounds like a stage name, but I have a feeling it's real.
It is actually completely real. I have gotten weatherman or superhero my entire, ever since childhood, which is probably why I'm not a weatherman, because when you hear from a young age, you should do this, it's the last thing that you're gonna do.
Yeah.
But that is my real actual government name. My father's, name is Steve, and so he's got the alliteration thing going. And it's a pretty cool last name. I'm pretty happy with the way that lottery has worked out.
It's something where I don't think anyone will ever mispronounce it. I don't think anyone's like Jeff Stormare, or I mean, maybe, but I don't know. I live in a world where everyone mispronounces my last name on the first try. You nailed it, so I appreciate that.
See, well, again, the secret is that you have several seasons of a podcast and I can go and hear you pronounce it again and again and again. I take no credit for not like pulling up an audio file and going like, let me just make sure that I got this locked in. Nice thing about having hours upon hours of us talking on the internet. Well, before we dive in, before we both get into the weeds, why don't we take a moment? Why don't you let our lovely listeners at home know about anything you've got going on that you might want them to know about?
So today, the 6th of November, I am launching season 3 of my podcast. I took a whopping 1 week off between seasons, and my show is Fine Dining, the search for the most mediocre restaurant in America. That's fine in quotes. I love chain restaurants. I love stupid, silly, themed restaurant experiences. They bring my heart joy and the cholesterol that will one day end me. But I wanted to make a mission to just be like, how many different chain restaurants can I go to? And but also, let's call a spade. They're not like top tier dining. So, I'm occupying that middle tier of mediocrity, searching for the perfect 5.00 dining experience out of 10. And I'm very excited to announce today, my new episode, my season 3 premiere. I spent 10 months on a wait list to get to eat at this restaurant. So this week and next Wednesday, I do 2-part episodes. I am covering Casa Bonita from the South Park episode. Newly owned by the Matt Stone and Trey Parker, who make South Park. I got to go back in July, and I've been sitting on this episode just giddy and ready to release it. My guest for the episode is Ife Wadiwe from Dropout TV and the new host of the upcoming season of Actually. We flew to Colorado together with our girlfriends and had a double date at Casa Bonita, and it was everything you would want out of that experience. So I am so thrilled to put that out. So today you can hear the history of the company and the changeover in ownership and all that. And then I'll read off some fun Yelp reviews about it. Next week, you'll be able to hear our actual review of the experience that we had, talking about the good, the not good, and what was just there.
I'm sitting here listening to this with my head in my hands. A reality of like making this show is that very rarely do we record the day that something is released. So like I now am sitting with the knowledge that I have to sit and wait for like a month and a half before I get to hear this. Which means that I'm now angry at you, and we're starting this recording from a place of like bitter resentment, which I think is very exciting.
Great. Love it. Take that energy.
I think this feels like the good energy to bring into the game that we're playing, because we are playing a game that we've played before on the show that I am very excited and emotional about. We are playing Inmortal Unmasked in the main event by Steph Beck-Fay. This is a short story game for 2 players based on a game that I've written also called Inmortal Unmasked in the main event. This is a game about, my actual favorite thing in the world. This is a game about professional wrestling. Michael, talk to me about like your background, your fandom of wrestling, because you are a wrestling fan.
Okay, so you're familiar with heroin, right?
Somewhat.
Maybe not from personal experience, but there's a term, chasing the dragon, where you want to match that first high that you got. My very first wrestling show was WrestleMania 17, which is widely regarded as one of the best wrestling shows of all time. Main evented by Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock. Stone Cold turned heel, joined alliances with Vince McMahon after feuding with him for years. But here's the thing. Wrestling was this forbidden fruit for me because I had an older brother who got to watch during the Attitude Era. And I was 12 when WrestleMania 17 happened. And my parents deemed wrestling too inappropriate for me based on the things that were happening, which probably isn't the wrong call. So that was like, okay, fine, you can order a WrestleMania, you can watch this show, and I was just hooked. So I've been a wrestling fan since 2001. I've got more action figures than I know what to do with. I literally got a custom championship belt made for my podcast.
Same hat,
everything in my life kind of harkens back. Hell yeah, dude. I have a belt to commemorate. I do a burger tournament in September called Septemburger, and I got custom side plates made for the winners of year 1 and year 2, Outback Steakhouse and In-N-Out Burger. And so it's just kind of like my running trophy. And I think every 4 years I'll run out of side plates. So I'll be like, guess I got to get another belt now.
That's so great. That kicks ass.
Yeah. And then, I've had my favorites through the years. I was an HBK guy when he came back in 2002. And then around 2009, that summer, I started really branching out and discovering indie wrestling and international wrestling and watching Kawada and Misawa and Ring of Honor. And the guy that captured my heart was Bryan Danielson. So when we were talking about doing this podcast episode, it was timing up with the time where Bryan was putting his career on the line at Wembley Stadium in AEW. I'm a giant AEW fan. They've kind of reignited my fire for wrestling since they started, and they've got a lot of my favorite guys there. And so I'm just I'm in total Bryan Danielson mode. And one of the things that I have prepped for this podcast is based on a pitch I made for a screenplay I wanted to write in film school that was based on frustrations with Daniel Bryan's booking in WWE in 2010. So
that's so funny.
This is going to be so weirdly full circle for me.
I really appreciate this. And it's funny that you mention Bryan Danielson as the person that captivated your imagination, because I had watched wrestling as a kid for a very short period. We're about the same age. So when I was 4 or 5 was peak Bret Hart era. And I had watched for a minute, then I fell off. And then I got back into it in a very big way when my wife she rediscovered wrestling from her teenage years. She dragged me into it, and the TV wrestling guy that captured my imagination was WWE Daniel Bryan, specifically because we both got into it. When we got into wrestling, we did not have cable, which meant that we could not watch Monday Night Raw. We could not watch SmackDown. So what we had to watch were the over the air WWE shows. So Main Event and very crucially, Saturday Morning Slam.
Oh my gosh. Let's talk about Daniel Bryan on Saturday Morning Slam. It was best. The best. So this is a true story. My first D&D campaign, which ran from as a player 2017, and we wrapped it up in 2021. My first character was a wrestler named Dick Hammerstein, and I had a pet bear who I named Danielson. And for Saturday Morning Slam and Daniel Bryan, his obsession with bears. I'm sure you've seen the compilation clip of him. If
you can do it on a bear, you can do it in the ring.
Bears. Yeah. Yeah.
That was the thing that I latched onto this funny, strange little bearded man. And then immediately after that, he wins at SummerSlam and goes on to main event one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time. It could not have been a more lightning in a bottle thing of watching a guy on the only show that you can get on TV as the weird Saturday morning cartoon, and then immediately watching that man fight against the authority to conquer everything. And then from there, we also got really into international wrestling. My wife and I are gigantic, mainly what we watch now is Japanese wrestling. We're big DDT watchers. And so specifically this game,
okay.
As it angles, the way that this game centers, and I'm going to read the intro text in a moment, the way that it centers Korakuen Hall is it hits me in the heart because like that is a place that I have seen on TV, like so many shows from like all of the different promotions that I have watched. Like it is a very interesting venue for how like universal it is when you watch a lot of promotions from Japan. Like everybody runs there and you get that common visual language in a way that I think is genuinely like fascinating for like a space in wrestling.
Sure. I have not been at Korakuen Hall. I did go to Japan for Wrestle Kingdom in 2019. It was the last show before all the elite guys left to form AEW. But Korakuen is on my bucket list of like, I want to see a show there.
It is extremely high on my bucket list. I know that when Jen and I go to Japan, like that's the thing that I think I most want to do is just like be in the space where I've watched all of this wrestling occur.
Yeah.
So today we are playing a game. I'm going to read the intro text. We're going to set the stage, and then we're going to start talking about wrestling.
Goo. I don't know what that sound was. I think I meant to say good right there, and I think I just said goo. So,
well, run with it. Run with it. We'll see where it goes. It is a sold-out show at Korakuen Hall. The lights dim. Your entrance music comes on the loudspeakers. You are Inmortal, one of the greatest professional wrestlers alive, and 2,000 people have come to see your final match. Your star has faded since your main event days, but the real heads know who you are and what you mean to this sport. Your mask is iconic. You revitalized Mexican-style wrestling in Japan. You helped bring your home promotion from near bankruptcy to international success. You trained a generation of stars, many of whom still make banks off of moves and gimmick matches you innovated. And tonight you retire in a mask versus mask match against your greatest rival. Your rival complements you perfectly. If you're big and strong, they're small and fast. If you're brash and boisterous, they're stoic and reserved. If you're working heel, they're working face. And even your masks are matched opposites. You came up in this industry together, and in many ways you owe each other your careers. All but a few of your best matches were with them, and of course they have to be the one to take off your mask. You climb through the ropes, you lock eyes with your rival, the sounds of the bell, of the crowd, of the ring, underneath you bring back a flood of memories. So that's the setup. So let me ask you this. I want to start with a question to kind of ground us a little bit.
Yeah.
We talked about some of our favorite wrestlers. We talked about some of our matches, promotions. What's like your favorite or the first like wrestling rivalry like over time that comes to mind? Like what is it? What rivalry like is on your mind as we head into this game?
Ooh, all right. As we head into this game is a different thing from the first one that comes to mind. Because like first, I think chronologically, Rock versus Austin. My favorite rivalry of all time is Kevin Steen versus El Generico in Ring of Honor.
Oh, bless. Oh, it's so... I have been saying for months that, like, the thing that I want more than anything, with where both Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are in WWE, is for them to get one final big ticket match at WrestleMania. I think that, like, it just feels like it's what I want from wrestling more than anything in the world, I think, is to see those two get to fight on the biggest stage in wrestling.
I mean, I was at WrestleMania for their big title win against the Usos, which that was
great.
That's the crowd you want to be in. Like in LA where they kind of blew up in PWG, I was in tears at the end of that show.
Oh, what a moment. That's a great rivalry. I think the rivalry that is like in my head, and I think like I'm excited to kind of like play at, I mentioned that Jen and I are big DDT heads. I am a sucker for like the complicated emotional history of the Golden Lovers.
Okay. I'm here for it.
I am in the paint over the Golden Lovers. It is one of those things where like there were years in the middle where they weren't in the same promotion, and then Kenny Omega would tweet just some messy drama, and I'd be like, well, I guess I'm just watching tweets for a while. Like,
yeah,
and there's something about that rivalry of like, I don't hate you. Like, it's not a rivalry in hate. It's a rivalry in like, I set my sights on beating you, and like no matter what I do, it's the one hill I can't seem to climb.
Yeah.
Like that, there's something so powerful in that, and that's kind of where my head is at as we kind of like bounce around ideas.
Yeah.
So
Can I
basically,
tell
how
a
this
very short Kenny Omega anecdote?
please tell a short Kenny Omega anecdote.
I was at a PWG show. It was one of the shows that he was at, which he would show up there from time to time. But
Sure.
given his work in Japan, he, wasn't there often. It was definitely like kind of a special rarity sort of thing. And I think it was his first show in a while since when I saw him. And I want to say he tagged with Generico or something, but I might be making that up. Anyways, I'm at the end of the show. I want a picture with Kenny, and kind of the way PWG works. I don't know if you've ever been, but the wrestlers kind of hang out at ringside.
Yeah.
Pre-show, intermission, post-show. And, they're selling their gimmicks, their shirts, their DVDs, their whatever. You can get some photo ops, et cetera, et cetera. And I am just waiting, trying to meet Kenny Omega, because I didn't get to before the show. I didn't get to during intermission. He wasn't out. And I'm just waiting by the curtain. Most of the wrestlers have already gone to the ring, and I just want a picture with them. I have 1% battery on my phone. Kenny walks through the thing, and I uncontrollably just kind of fangirl scream at him Kenny, my phone has 1% battery and I just want a photo with you. And his immediate response was to drop his bag and be quick, let's do it. And was just so game to immediately play along and grant me this thing. And my phone did not die. I did get a photo. And so just that was a moment where he became one of my guys. I already really liked Kenny Omega at that point, but I was I will die for this man.
That's
moving
so
forward.
Sweet. That's the sweetest thing that I've ever heard. That's lovely.
He's such a good dude.
Oh, I'm over the moon. So really what this is going to be is we have 7 prompts here that are going to guide us through our history together, from our first match, from when we debuted, all the way up to this final mask versus mask match in Corrigan Hall.
Yeah.
I'll read through the prompts, and then we'll just kind of talk through who our wrestlers are, how they relate to each other, where we are, and kind of flesh out these memories one kind of prompt at a time. So our first match. Everyone starts somewhere. This may or may not be the first actual match you wrestled at a real show, but it was certainly your first match with the one who would become your rival. You were both trainees then, green and still innocent. Your technical skill left much to be desired, and you were only allowed a handful of moves, but even at this stage, it was clear the two of you had a special chemistry. Describe together how you connected with a crowd who expected nothing from you, and what did you each discover in yourselves that would help define your career? You mentioned you had a premise for how we relate to each other, and I want to throw that to you immediately.
I have a premise for prompt number 2 for the team debut.
Okay,
so I'm going to save it till then.
Okay,
as far as
great.
the garbage first match that everyone has, this we can discover together.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Admittedly, I love young lion matches. I love young guy matches. My wife always calls them stumble boys. I love a good stumble boy match. I have no parental instincts, but I latch on to a green behind the ears wrestler immediately. And I'm
yeah,
well, great. I'm going to defend you until I die. That's just how this is. And so my favorite thing, and this is a thing that happens in New Japan, but I like it when it happens not in New Japan, is the New Japan gimmick of the wrestlers have to wear black trunks, run to the ring, and then do push-ups in the ring. It's when you see someone do that not in New Japan and they're referencing the New Japan thing, it always hits for me. Every single time I'm that's great.
Yeah.
I'm over the moon at this person playing at I'm a very serious wrestler.
Yeah. So I imagine we're at we're literally playing a bar in Tijuana or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's called. Let's just say it's called El Tequila, which doesn't even match tense.
Can I throw you a very specific actual place where I've watched wrestling that I think I'd like that we can set this at? This is the parking lot of a Portuguese barbecue restaurant.
Of course it is. It so obviously is that. Yes.
like which is the best space that I've ever watched wrestling in. Yeah, this is it is the middle of summer. It is like 102 degrees and we are in a Portuguese barbecue restaurant parking lot. Everyone is sweaty and everyone is as miserable as they can possibly be.
Yeah. I've got a question for you. Is this like, are we narrating the events? Are we playing the scenes? Or is it like a mixture? Are we like, is this like a documentary piece highlighting the growth of our team and rivalry, or like what's the presentation of this?
Documentary is like a very good way to kind of like mentally lock it in. I think it's a mixture of, we kind of play it by ear. Like, I think it's a little bit of like describing scenes. If we want to dip into a particular moment and kind of linger there, we can kind of like play that scene out, kind of weaving back and forth, whatever kind of feels comfortable at that moment.
Are we documentarians making it about these characters, or are we these characters talking about our careers?
I think we are these characters, like remembering,
reflecting.
Like if this is the movie of your final match, you know, we've stepped into the ring, the bell has rung, and then we're seeing the flashbacks, we're seeing the moments. So there's sort of the descriptions of everything, and then the kind of the individual moments we want to zoom in on and kind of like play out to sort of float from moment to moment.
So to paint a picture, my character, I'm gonna be like some version of myself in the sense of like I'm kind of built like Kevin Owens. So
sure,
that's kind of like what I picture myself to be. I'm a little bit in that style and that look, and of course it's my first match, so I'm wearing gym shorts and a t-shirt that I've ripped the sleeves off of and probably turned inside out because the videographer was like, hey, we can't sell this DVD if that Reebok logo is showing, so you got to turn it inside out.
Magnificent. I think to maximize sort of the difference with that, and also to play up the sort of like very, very serious young wrestler vibe, like I am like ripped 22-year-old is the way to describe it. Like gym bro shaped. I have like just black trunks, black boots. I am fully baby oiled up, and like I am coming to the ring. I'm doing the fucking Samoa Joe, Dean Malenko wrist thing. Like, I'm doing all of the warm-ups and grabbing the elbows. Like, I am presenting to the crowd that, like, I am the most serious wrestler that there has ever been.
And my entrance, I look lost. I look like I stumbled into a wrestling match. My mouth is open. I'm just kind of slack-jawed, confused, starstruck by the crowd, which is the opposite reaction than what should be. And I'm just kind of like trying to present confidence on my way to the ring. Nobody buys it.
That's great. That's fantastic. I think that, like, the match sort of, I think that feels like the story of the match, right? The story of the match is like, I think, because I think crucially, we have been given no real direction other than fill 5 or 10 minutes. Like it was strictly, for where we are and like who we are. Like we were told, go out there and do some moves. So I think that like, working together, like we have sort of found a story of I am like pushing you to like I'm doing the Greco-Roman knuckle locks and the tests of strength. And like it's very much a like I am a classically trained wrestler, like and how are you, like what's the character thing that you're doing to counteract that?
Sorry, to counteract
or to like contrast like this very kind of like Greco-Roman wrestling. This very kind of Greco-Roman classical wrestling thing that I'm doing as a character beating the ring.
So I am just grab and throw. I am just inelegant suplexes. I'm safe about them, but there is a little bit of worry of like I definitely gotta brace my own fall because this guy is throwing me around. I also, in my mind, I remember it like it was yesterday. The moment that I won the crowd over should not have won anybody over. I hit you with a power bomb in the corner. You fell to your knees. I forgot the rules of what we were doing, and I went to make a tag. This was not a tag team match, but the crowd exploded, and I went with it. So I stayed on the apron, and I just waited to be tagged back in while you were just recovering. And I did it like an invisible man, and the crowd popped. It was stupid as hell, but I came in and finally got my shit together and figured out, oh, that's what a pop sounds like.
I really love that. I love this idea that I love this idea. I really think there's a magic. And like I think to really lean into that, it's really funny to like I'm going to go full I'm jumping in the narration here like it was the stupidest goddamn thing I've ever seen in my life. Like and crucially, we got dragged to hell and back for doing that. But like the second that he started playing up an invisible man, fuck if it wasn't the funniest thing that I've ever seen in the ring. And so giving myself like an Uranage, yeah, it sucked and it hurt, but like it was worth every minute of it. Like and I think there is such a palpable, we see the two of us like start to do this weird bit and like there is an immediate sort of like jazz, like palpable joy of discovery of like, yeah, fuck it. They didn't tell us not to do this. So like, I'm fully throwing myself in the dynamic of like, all right, there's an invisible man. Cool. Let's see where this goes from here.
And it was crazy. It got us both over just because we both went with it. You, the serious type, embracing this silly gimmick. It would not have worked if you didn't. And me finally gaining some confidence to go along and find something. It made the match land. It still got a dud rating from Meltzer, though.
It did. Cage match, not a fan. The inmates did not love the match. Yeah, and I think like walking away from that, like my character kind of took that to be like there is such a distinct joy in being the straight man, right? There's such a distinct joy in being the serious guy who then gets dragged into it. Like this is something that I will again shout out my guy Kenny Omega was very good at that at NJPW. Whenever he would fight like Yano, of like I'm not doing comedy, and then he would inevitably do comedy, and like there's something really, and I think like that is the thing that I've held on to is like it's way funnier, and like the crowd pops way harder when somebody doesn't want to do the funny. Like when somebody doesn't want to do the comedy, it makes the comedy hit that much harder.
Literally, my favorite comedy wrestler of all time is William Regal. And he is such a good technician, but his aversion, or at least his character's seeming aversion to comedy, is why it just hits so well.
Yeah, and he's so good at like it's that sense of like of I'm doing this, but I'm not happy about it, and hiding the fact that like William Regal is a silly little man who loves silly little goofs with all of his heart.
Yeah.
All right. We come now to prompt number 2, team debut. Years of training has paid off. We've had matches in front of crowds before, but this felt like being born anew. You and the one who had become your rival have donned masks for the first time and stepped into the ring as a team. Describe your masks together. What did they mean to you? So what's our tag team gimmick here?
Okay. I am El Tortugo. You are El Conejo. We are the tortoise and the hare.
That's really fucking funny.
I present you with a mask that actually has bunny ears on it, and boy do you hate it, but other than that it's a sick mask.
I love this a lot. I like the angle. I think like we put the masks on, and like the first version of this mask is a cartoon rabbit. Like, it is a full-fledged cartoon rabbit. And like
like an April Easter bunny at the local grocery store, like
yeah,
selling an egg like that. Yeah.
And I think like it sells the gimmick, but it like undersells the character. And I think like there's initially, when I first saw the mask, it was the worst thing that I'd ever seen in my life. I'm not gonna lie. You feel the urge to quit.
But I made
you
this
feel
at
like
home
you're being
for
ribbed. You feel like you're being ribbed when this
Yeah.
is happening. But there's a change that gets made. Like, I have a realization, and like I change like I commission something special and different, and like maybe I surprise you with this at the start of one of our matches. I have commissioned a version of this mask that is like a little bit sort of like almost not quite like it's not strings, like it's a full face mask, so it's not quite like a Wyatt family bunny, like horror bunny mask, but it is like a little bit of a violent horror style mask to lean into. Like I've found a character angle that like works with this. I am becoming a wrestling heel, and we are going to be a pareja increíble, the pairing of a face and a heel on a tag team together. And my gimmick is that I am like I'm like, if I'm going to do this, if I made the decision, if I was going to do this, if I was going to be this wrestler, if I was going to be a bunny, I'm just going to hold on to what I've found works. And I'm going to be the angriest, most violent bunny that there has ever been. And I start doing like hardcore, violent, like almost like shades of deathmatch wrestling. Like I'm hitting people with chairs out of the ring. I'm throwing people into the turnbuckle. Like I am embracing this idea that, and like it works because like it ties into the idea that like I am the hair. I am here because I want things to be done fast and I want them to be done cheap. So like it is a I am doing what I got to do to win. I'm taking the shortcut.
And I am just slow and steady, but constant. My offense is unrelenting, deliberate, and slow and steady wins the race. You being the speedy hare, it's not just about your speed and your style. It's about your temperament. You are quick to anger.
Yeah. It's exactly
and I'm
what
the
it
patient
is.
one.
And and it's this sense of like that ties in really nicely to like the tag team dynamic of like the match wasn't perfect, but it was electric nonetheless. Describe together how you covered each other's weaknesses and amplified each other's strengths. What rookie mistakes did you make, and what great moments did you create accidentally? It works really nicely that the short-tempered, angry, violent, like spot fest wrestler comes out to the ring first and is the first person to get to kick off the match, and then also ends up like getting his ass beat. Like that became my specialty of like, I'm short, I got a temper, I'm hitting you with a light tube, but then you're going to turn it around on me and I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes like getting just clobbered. And when I like, so that I can finally like, it's quick, explosive, and it means that when I tag you in, like you've got time to like be a constant presence and sort of like put that energy into your matches.
I am the slowest hot tag in the business, but it's because of my presence. I have found, being El Tortugo, that I can just not lumber in. I've definitely found my stage presence, and I am a presence, but I climb through those ropes and I don't run. I make my way over at my pace, and they, instead of feeding into my strike combo that you might see from a hot tag, they just run straight into suplexes, and I'll throw both guys around while you're over there on the apron recovering, and that's how I'll turn the tide. It is all about, if you are within reach of me, you're getting thrown.
And like it's genuinely one of my favorite moments in wrestling. I think like in character, I remember the first time the audience reacted to tagging in El Tortugo. Like the first time it happened, I knew that we had found something special because, like you said, normally when you do a hot tag, you want somebody to run in and throw a clothesline and do a strike combo, and it's about like speed and momentum and an explosion. But there is something so different when you tag in, when you do the hot tag to a monster. There is something so different in the crowd response when that moment of catharsis happens and suddenly the opponent is in the ring with someone that is like, whether physically or just through presence, completely overshadowing them. There is this entire other dimension of audience anticipation. And watching that in the ring for the first time, I had realized we keyed into something that was going to guide the rest of our careers.
Yep.
Fuck yeah.
Let's see.
Okay.
I'm looking at the prompt. I want to see if there's any rookie mistakes we made or I don't want to slow down the pace of it. We can move on to the next one. I don't want to dwell back or anything.
And if we come up with anything, like we can always play around, get funky with the chronology. Team Triumph. It all happened so fast. Our rise up the card felt like a dream. One day we were the rookie openers, and then overnight we were serious title contenders. Describe together how you grew into yourselves over the course of your tag team run. How did you inspire each other to improve, and were there ways that you held each other back?
So I remember the thing that took me to the next level. It was a gift from my tag team partner, El Conejo. I gave him his mask, and he, as we were starting to climb the card, figured a turtle doesn't just need a mask. A turtle needs a shell to come out of. And so my ring gear adopted a shell, and it made me, if you've ever turned a turtle on its back, unable to be pinned. My shoulders do not touch the mat when I fall to my back. So every time I get knocked down, I just take the hits, I absorb whatever I need to, but I am unbeatable, which gives you time to come up with a game plan and come in and turn the tides in our favor.
I love this. I think that's also how maybe it's not a whole... I think it would be inaccurate to say El Tortugo held me back. We were a hot act together. We were electric. But I was always going to be the murder bunny. Like, I was always going to be a cranky little sidekick character. And maybe on some level, I knew when I gave him that shell, I was setting him up with a singles gimmick. The Turtle Man doesn't need a tag team partner. A monster, that's a singles character. And we are building together here a monster in the ring. So maybe on some level, like, I think I knew that I was setting El Tortugo up for a goodbye. I think I knew that, like, this partnership wouldn't last because he was going to go on and be a humongous monster hit, and I needed to break away to find my own way of being. It was not going to work in the long term.
Now, here's the thing that you did not see coming. While you did think, yes, this gimmick is going to enhance his career and make me a star, what you didn't realize is that by being unpinnable, you didn't expect that I would start tapping out so much. Once the other team started finding my weak points, we had our triumph, we had our title win, we had our run, we were 2-time champions. Campeones, they called us. But once you find out a weakness, every team can exploit it. So this seemingly unbreakable shell was cracked forever once my opponents figured out, focus on the limbs. And this monster got cut down to size, and I lost us our championships. I lost us contention. And I could tell it wasn't sitting well with El Conejo.
It all comes to a head. There's a second prompt. Here's the thing. There's a second prompt here, but I'm tempted to skip over it because we've set up part 4 so perfectly. here's what I want to describe. I think I want to like build this. I want to build us to prompt number 4, but like give us this moment to kick us off, I think, a little bit.
I was going to say, if you want to like take what I just said and put it later, we can do that.
No, I think this works because the prompt here is, before anyone knew it, you were undeniable. Describe together the moment you became true stars. Did either of you feel ready for the push you received? How did the future seem? And looking back, what are you proudest of? I think we see a whole montage of that happening, of like, and I think like it is an interspersed montage with El Tortugo starting to like tap out more and more, and like starting to become the weak link in the chain, but also like us getting more and more of a push and like getting bigger and bigger opportunities. You know, suddenly we're not in the parking lot of a barbecue restaurant. Suddenly we're inside, and that's a huge improvement. And like the venues are a little nicer, and suddenly like we're getting booked onto like pay-per-view shows, and we're streaming on Twitch, like we're seen on Twitch. And then like the first, like we're seeing this like cross of like we're showing up in different promotions, but like that same recurring beat, you're still tapping out. Like you are still getting booked as like a monster. Is one of the reasons a monster exists is to get beaten to make someone else, to make a monster killer a star. And like it's watching that happen, and there's this in the ring and out of the ring frustration that is building very specifically.
The one common denominator is, despite my I won't say willingness to quit, but ultimately if I'm tapping out, I am quitting a match. The one common denominator is the crowd feels so much like all they want is for me to survive a submission.
Yeah.
And it's just like they are so rooting for me. And it's one of those like weird reverse, not losing angle gimmicks, because we're still getting some wins here and there. It's just that when we lose, I'm the weak link. But it is this thing where like you can feel that build. I am being pushed by being the one to tap out. I think they want me to outsmart the people that are figuring out how to use my shell against me. I think that there's all this sympathy generated, and you get some of it secondhand, but you definitely notice that it's not for us as much as it is for me. And I think that jealousy spreads up a little bit.
Things fall apart. A tag team cannot hold. Maybe the tension had been building for a while, or maybe the audience was caught completely off guard, but either way, one of you turned dramatically against the other. The hurt and anger of this moment would drive the feud that defined your career. Which of us do we think turned?
I think it's got to be you.
Okay. So I'm going to describe the circumstances around the betrayal, what you and your fans were feeling right before it happened, and looking back, could the story have gone any other way? I don't think so. I think there are moments in your career where you have to take a step, and where the iron is simply too hot not to strike. El Tortugo was in a submission hold. The crowd is begging for him to survive. And I, having traveled with him for years and years across continents, I know that he's not going to stick with this match. I know that he's about to turn. I know that he's about to break. The crowd is so electric. In the years that I've been wrestling, honestly, for most of the time that I've watched wrestling, have not felt the crowd so in the corner of one wrestler in one moment. And I know if I need to break away and I need to become myself again, this is going to be when it has to happen. And I step into the ring and I push the referee aside. And now I hand it to you to describe the moment of betrayal and the immediate follow-up.
So as this is happening, my hand is up. You think he's tapping. He's about to tap. But that was not what was going through my head. I was clawing. I was scratching. I was working my way to the ropes. My shell, as I was put in that Boston crab, was being pushed down onto the back of my neck. But I wanted to fight despite this hindrance to my ability to hang on that has cursed me for almost a year now at this point. This gimmick has been causing me to tap out. Tonight is the night where that doesn't happen. And I know that my partner of all people believes in me. And I slam my hand down and I make it closer and closer and closer. The bottom rope is within reach. And just as my hand is about to hit the rope, the ref gets shoved by my tag team partner. I look over and I get dragged back to the middle of the ring by my opponent. No referee to break him off of me. And before I know it, my own partner joins with the heel team, pushing them off of me and saying, I've got to be the one to do it. And you bear down in a submission hold that is so tight that it cracks my shell, breaking it forever. You smash it over me, you put it over my head, you slam a steel chair into the removed shell, and you leave me a shell of a man. I'll never forget that betrayal.
You and your rival were different after the turn. When each of you appeared next, you had new masks and new attitudes. Describe your masks separately. What do they mean to each of you? Would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
I can go first. My mask is basically one solid piece of bluish green, kind of like a sea turtle color. But it is there are no eye holes. There is no mouth hole. It is one solid piece of cloth. I can see through it. I can breathe through it. But I am a man who feels like this betrayal took away my own ability to see my own face. I want to see no part of me. I want to cover it. I'm ashamed that I felt like I let you down to the point that you felt the need to turn on me. So I don't want any defining features. It's just a solid, or I guess a gradient mask between blue and green that covers me. And I couldn't even go by Tortugo anymore. I decided I need to live in this shame forever, immortally. I am El Inmortal.
I think my mask, I have broken El Tortugo. I have slain the beast and broken the monster. I think that my mask, almost similarly, very few facial features other than eye slits, but like the front of the mask, the back of the mask is a very classic kind of a very classic luchador mask with the laces and the fabric. The front of it is very stiff. It looks metal. It looks like it's exactly midway between like a gladiator mask and Vega from Street Fighter.
Okay.
It is it's got like a very firm crease in the middle, so it's kind of got that like that heavy metal mask aesthetic. And like it is it's steel gray with like red stripes along the side. It looks like a gladiator or a knight or a warrior mask. I am Beast Slayer.
I'm kind of terrified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that it also like carries through to my that same kind of deathmatchy hardcore style like carries through to Beast Slayer of I destroy, like my goal is to destroy my opponents and to hit them if it means hitting them with weapons. Like I am bringing this is a war and I am fighting a war every time I step in that ring. Like I grow as a I to an extent I leave behind the comedy and I am like a hardcore deathmatch wrestler very specifically.
And my style of like, I like throwing people around. I'm still very like suplex oriented. But there's more of a mean streak to me. You can tell that I want to channel this pain that I'm feeling into making sure that my moves are felt. And so there's a little bit more, when I do a suplex to somebody, I might leave my arms, or my hands clasped so that I can hit them again. When I'm throwing someone into the turnbuckles, it's not one of those super like choreographed safe throws. It's my work's getting a little bit more snug, as they say. And the only thing that connects me to who I used to be is I have like wrist gauntlets as part of my ring gear that are made from the shards of my cracked shell from my previous gimmick. It's subtle, but it is there. It's not even necessarily a thing that I have the announcers point out. It's just kind of fans that know they know.
Love that. I love that. We come now to the feud. This is the story we will both be remembered for. Maybe this burned bright and short, or maybe it lasted years. In any case, you and your rival did the best work of both of your careers here. Every match felt like life or death, and in some ways, it really was. Describe separately how each of you learned to stand on your own. What did you bring out in yourselves that surprised audiences? What did you bring out in yourselves that surprised each other? It all ended at the main event of the first show of the year, the biggest stage of our lives. We're going to describe how we went the extra mile and what we did here that has never been done before. I think Beast Slayer. I have to think about this for a moment.
Mm-hmm. Can I cut a promo on you?
Yeah, please.
Beast Slayer, you have made a gimmick out of the fact that you slay beasts. A turtle is no beast. A turtle is a trusting creature. And I trusted you. You want to see a beast. You want to try and slay what is immortal? I would like to see you try, because I am going to meet you on your level. We are going to have a match, a death match. But immortals don't die.
Immortals don't die is a real good line. Fuck. I think I'm going to cut a promo in return.
Can I point something out real quick?
Yeah.
Even though I'm doing like a kind of a terrible execution of a Mexican accent, I just want listeners to know, like, I myself am Mexican and I am channeling like relatives of mine. I'm not just doing like a blanket racist interpretation of what Mexicans sound like.
I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah.
I'm thinking my promo. Here's what I want you to understand, Inmortal. I didn't slay the beast to prove myself. I didn't break you because I wanted to. What I did, and what I would do again in a moment's notice, and what I will do to you in this new form, and whatever new form you take, was an act of mercy. I put you out of your misery. You had the potential to be a god, and you instead chose to be a joke. Someone needed to be the one to crack your shell, to get it into your head that you could be great. I did what I did as an act of love, because I knew better than anyone that you could be someone great. And when we step in the ring, and when I make you bleed, and when I tear that perfectly smooth little mask, and when I break those shells that you still have on your wrist, and when I make you suffer, and I make you tap out just like you did every time we stepped in the ring together, it will simply be another lesson in making you into the wrestler that I know that you can be. And when all of that happens, what I want from you, Inmortal, is a thank you.
I will not be thanking you because you lie to these people when you tell them that you are doing this for me. You saw the crowd behind me. You saw the opportunity to make it about you. Instead of becoming the better wrestler, the better connection with these fans, you chose to turn your back on me and them at the same time. So I will agree to your terms, but it will not be happening because I am not losing this match. I will die before I tap out.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. God, I love wrestling and I love wrestling promos. I think they are one of the most perfect, like in a vacuum, I think the wrestling promo is one of the most perfect art forms in the world. Okay. So, the biggest stage of our lives. We are describing how we went the extra mile to make this match unforgettable. I think I am going to do my favorite thing. So, I am genuinely a gigantic fan of deathmatch wrestling. Like, deathmatch wrestling is one of my favorite things to watch. It is one of my favorite things to experience. And so, like, there's a lot of pieces of deathmatch wrestling that, like, I love with all of my heart. And one of my favorites is when a deathmatch wrestler unveils their signature weapon.
Yeah.
I popped Nick Gage with his pizza cutter. When he brings out the pizza cutter, I'm like, that's it. I'm on board. Like, when they have that distinct thing that they're like, this is my weapon.
Yeah.
I lose my shit every time. And I think that for this match, I am debuting Beast Slayer's signature weapon.
Okay.
I think it is, my brain went to chain, like of the visual of a chain, and I think I am pulling that into, the video game, the one of the few video games that I've ever loved, and like a video game visual that is stuck in my head for 35 years. The sickest weapon that has ever been created, the Dragon Quest chain sickle, kicks ass.
I'm not familiar. Hold on, I'm going to Google this real quick.
Google chain sickle and just look at the images, because this thing fucks.
Are you trying to murder me?
I think that's the immediate response I want from the crowd. I think this thing is like break. I think there's like a very brief like moment of us standing in the ring and like a very brief like character break or kayfabe break of us backstage and like you asking that question and me revealing like, actually, other than, and I tap the edge of it, I'm like, other than this point where I'm gonna like scratch you in the forehead, this thing's practically a butter knife. Like, that, it's what it is for the listener is very literally like a big ass scythe fucking sickle attached to a long chain with a big ball on the other end of it. And I'm like, yeah, actually, like, and I kind of like run the blade portion along like your arm once or twice. I'm like, this thing can barely scratch paper. This thing's fine. Trust me. All this is going to do is like stab you in the head and give you a little nick. But the audience is going to look at this thing and it's going to be the coolest fucking thing they've ever seen in their lives.
Yeah. Sick.
That's what I'm doing to take it the extra mile. I think the audience has the exact same reaction that you had when you saw this thing, because I carry it out and I'm just like carrying it. And there's a clear sense of like, that's not a fucking joke. What the fuck is wrong with you? I'm doing the chain twirl. Like, I'm milking it.
Yeah. Oh God. I'm gonna preface with this. This is like my first big rivalry since the gimmick change. But
yeah,
I want to say, to really like make people want it, we probably took 6 months working in separate promotions and building our new move sets and like figuring out these gimmick changes and stuff. And we'll say that it was like me who interfered in a match at a promotion you were working that I wasn't booked at or something that got your attention for this. But then I can't reach you until whether it's like you then hire security or something, but like there's always an obstacle that prevents me from getting to you other than that first time. And we build that up for months before you finally agree to a match with me. But the only way you'll do it, it's not about wrestling. This, it's a death match.
For sure.
I mean, that's the politics backstage. Obviously, in the promo, I challenged you to that gimmick, but it's got to be on your terms. And so I finally am like, okay, I challenge you to a death match. This is your terms.
I think backstage, like so you saying that kind of like firms up, I think, like where Beast Slayer has gone for the last year. Like, I think the politics of it is more that like I realized I love weapons. Like, I've realized as a wrestler, I really love working with weapons and like doing hardcore wrestling. So like I have gone to like the American Indies or gone to like Japan and done like, the Japanese deathmatch promotions. And so like when we finally sit down to talk through, like, it's time for us to like bring this back, I'm like, yeah, but like this is where my audience is now. Like, people, like, I have to like play to the audience that I have. And so like, if we're going to do this, it's gotta be like, we have to at least like present them with the picture of what they want as fans.
Yeah. So, I come out for this match. I don't have seemingly any signature weapon or anything with me. I am in wrestling gear, not street fight gear. I look kind of like our first match. I'm a little bit out of my element. This isn't my scene. I'm dressed, not appropriately for what the thing is. I'm in tights. I'm wearing spandex to a thing where there's going to be sharp, pointy things. So you don't think I'm game. You don't think I've prepared. And I step into the ring across from you as the bell rings for our first contact since the betrayal. And in my mind, we wrestle around. You do some cheap shots and you get the early advantage after I get, a couple things where like more traditional wrestling wise, I'm able to throw you around and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that about him. He can do that. Let me equalize it. And you go out, you get some weapons and stuff. And the match, goes through kind of that formula where we're trading shots with steel chairs and eventually you go for your chain sickle and on your first attempt at using it, I bail to the outside of the ring, and I manage to like pull you under. You leave it in the ring. I throw you into the guardrail and kind of, I get some space from you. I go under the ring where now your mistake was not checking there because it turns out I have made plenty of preparations.
Oh, shit.
And you see, as I pull out, not one, not two, but three different covered. They're like under like a not a blanket, but like a thing for like a reveal, obviously. They're probably like the size of like a shield, like a hefty shield or something, similar in shape. And I slide all three of them into the ring, and you're on the floor outside. I'm standing in the ring with these three things in front of me, and I ask you to pick. Like I'm threatening you with one of these items, but I'm like, pick your poison, and I'm pointing at the three things. Which one do you want?
I think I point at at number 3, but like I'm just like I point at the last one, which is like whichever one looks the scariest under the blanket, we'll say, is the one that I point at specifically to up the drama of like I am pushing this, like upping that drama as much as possible.
So before I unveil it, I walk to the center of the ring and I throw you your chainsicle. I'm letting you have it. I'm not even like throwing it at you to try and hurt you. I'm like, here, fucking have it. and I unveil basically, yeah, it looks like a shield you can wear. It is a brand new turtle shell. This is not a long-term gimmick change, but this is a throwback to where we came from. And all over the back of this turtle shell is razor blades.
Yeah, there are. And I think
and I put it on my back, and I run the ropes, and I go to do a like a Darby Allin-esque suicide dive, which for a big guy is kind of tough, but like specifically
crushing.
where I'm turning my back so that my back is what hits you instead of like my arms or like my, shoulder, collarbone or whatever.
And I think that's
I am like, yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say it's got to be, and that's it, right? Like that's the moment of the match, right? Like because I think like there's a really great thing for the old heads where like they watch the flow of this match and they can see very specifically our tag team dynamic play out over the course of this singles match. Like I am hitting you with every weapon that I got immediately. Like I'm rushing in because like I am impatient. I am going full speed and you just wear me out. You take all of the hits until you can unveil this turtle shell. Slam me with the biggest like back like flying suicide dive imaginable. Tear the shit out of me with these razor blades, and then it's just I burned out too quickly. You put me down, and that's the end of like that is the last time that we are in the ring together for a while.
Yeah.
Because nothing lasts forever. Oh, sorry.
I in my mind, like I have an ending in mind to the match.
Please go for it. Yeah.
I hit you with this giant suicide dive that like cuts you up, and there's definitely a lot of gimmicked razors on there, but you got to take some of it, and most of it like you turn your body a little bit, you take it on the arm, and I throw you back in the ring, and I unveil the other two things, and they're all the same thing. Like you didn't actually have a choice. They're all just turtle shells covered in razor blades. And I'm setting them up so that I can like do a suplex onto these turtle shells.
Yeah.
you manage to like I want to say like you'll flip out of it or whatever. Like I go to suplex you. You land on your feet. You grab your chainsicle. You like swing it around. You go to throw it at me. I turn my back. It sinks into my turtle shell, and you use the chain to wrap me up. And finally, what no one else has been able to do, pin me while I have a turtle shell on, which supposedly makes me unpinnable. But you angle me in just the right way that my shoulders are down. You've got me wrapped up in a chain. It's the ultimate like 1 in a million shot, and you hit it and you beat me.
That's so fucking good. I adore that. What a good fuck. I love wrestling. So nothing lasts forever. You and your rival have ambitions outside of each other, and the company has plans for both of you. Describe separately how you each move on from the other and built a career by yourself. What goals are you now free to pursue, and what circumstances forced your hands? Where does Inmortal go after this?
I was humiliated by having to thank you publicly in the middle of a ring. I feel like I had to like, take my blows on the chin and just kind of like a thank you, sir. May I have another? No, I don't want another. I left the wrestling industry.
Oh shit.
I never announced retirement or anything like that, but I wanted to see what else was out there for me. And, that's the kayfabe of it. In real life, let's say I had like back and neck problems after that match.
Sure.
I had to take time off. But look, I'm immortal. I've got plenty of time to fill. So I did a bunch of things. Now that like that match kind of put us on the map, the feud put us on the map, we are superstars now. We've taken our act to Japan. We've taken our act to Mexico. We've even gone through the United States. I got hired to play the voice of an animated luchador dog in a Pixar movie. obvious, like similar to like Coco. So like,
Yeah.
obviously, right? Obviously. So, that takes up some of my time. I do some telenovelas. I play a villain. And like, to play the villain, I'm still wearing my Inmortal mask, but it has a mustache to indicate that I'm evil.
Sure.
Yeah, got to do that.
An eye patch over nothing on the face.
Yeah. And then that, of course, takes my career to the next level, not for acting, but because the visual of a mask with an eye patch over it makes me a meme. And I really blow up with like Gen Z just sharing pictures like, who is this guy? And I almost become like a cult. I get a cult following just from the meme, not even for my wrestling. But then there's two big acts of not charity, but like, good deeds I do that kind of embrace me to the public and start to get the conversation of like, wow, we really like this dude. When's he ever going to return to wrestling? But they have nothing to, well, they kind of have something to do with wrestling. One of them, I developed my own yoga program called Lucha Flex. And it's basically trying to help people deal with their own back and neck issues, utilizing techniques I learned in my luchador training, obviously. But then 2020 rolls around and the COVID-19 crisis takes the world by storm and people have to go inside. And I start a line of luchador full face N95 masks. Hashtag masks save lives. And it's a luchador themed, like, let's make masking cool kind of program.
I love this. Damn. I am in awe, frankly. I think Beastslayer like stays in wrestling consistently and like is much more of a like road warrior, like is just kind of in it. I think that like as time goes on, like I am forced to like dial back the death match because like you cannot really sustain that lifestyle. But like the legacy of that match in particular, of our match in particular, like it carries through, and that like our match against one another becomes an increasingly large part of my character because like when it is announced that I have a match, like those are the clips that are in the promo reel, right? Like it is played up of like a once upon a time, this is a thing that this guy did, and like it is played very aggressively that like this guy has gone to some of the darkest places that you can go. And so like, and I think like behind the scenes, like what that turns into is that like I have been in all of these different wrestling scenes for a very long time. And like, I become like I become a mentor figure specifically, with the mindset of like, do not burn yourself out. Like in its own way, I kind of become like I become a tortoise in my own right of like, I am teaching wrestlers like who I work with, like, man, like you're doing all of these moves and like you are going to blow out your kneecaps. Like if you keep up the speed you're going, like, yeah, you're going to make gifts, but you are also going to like have to retire at 30. Like I become very much a like backstage presence, much more so. So like the way that I grow is by just being a guy who sticks with it for so long that like people then look to Beastslayer as like a, hey, if Beastslayer is here, like it's it you know what it is? It really is. I find a second life as a battle royal guy or a rumble guy because like it's a thing where like you get the pop of like, oh, the big scary hardcore guy is here, and then there are 17 people in the ring, and we discover like a passion for like it's discovering the skill set of like there are 17 people in the ring. You two do a big spot, everybody else sit on a corner, and like the ability to have somebody whose job it is to corral that kind of specific environment, like that becomes sort of my sort of comfortable, almost day job place in wrestling is like there is a crazy situation. Here is a guy that has done some very crazy things who can steer that ship and make sure that it does not get completely off the rails. And like that becomes how I become like a respected hand in wrestling as I kind of pass from being young star into sort of like a veteran for our final match.
Now, are you consistently a heel, or do you kind of undulate back and forth between them? How is the crowd receiving you?
I think I undulate. I think I'm one of those heels you can't hate, right? Like, I think it's a little bit of like a Nick Gage kind of like, we can't really boo you because we think that you're cool. And like, ostensibly I'm doing heel things, but like, I don't know. And like, I think, I love that question because I think it presents the possibility to do like a full circle thing of like, now I'm the guy that like when I do a comedy spot, like if you put me with a goofy comedy wrestler, I don't got to do shit because the crowd is going to pop immediately because I'm the guy with the big scary chain signal and like, okay, you're going to be a clown for a minute. Oh, I'm so mad at this girl. Yeah. And like the crowd eats it up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm into that.
So we come to our final match. This is it. One last dance. Describe how you announced your retirement and challenged your rival. I will describe my reaction, how I built up the match for the audience, and then we will see what happens at the end of the match.
So in my mind, it's less that I'm announcing retirement and more that you're goading me back into it.
That's great.
That's how I see it, of like, my name was made off of humiliating this guy. And I'm still bothered seeing that he went on to become the bigger star, but he did it by abandoning this business that I love. And
I adore that. That's great.
Yeah, so I'll hear rumblings of that, and maybe I'm asked about it on a red carpet for like like a buddy cop comedy that I do or something like that. And someone mentions like, oh, Beast Slayer's, throwing your name around. You ever going to get back into the ring in Mexico or Japan or anything like that? And, I kind of joke about it like, oh, the guy that only does deathmatch wrestling, like he could never beat me in a wrestling match. And I just kind of like make that as a joke. And then the light bulb goes off. What if we do just a straight wrestling match for my retirement match?
That's great.
We got to do Korakuen.
Yep. And I think there is like it's like almost a, how do I respond to this? I think it's like I think there's like almost a shade of vulnerability to the response, right? There's a degree of like, the one thing that I have held on to forever, the one question that I have had in the back of my mind, I've gone off and done 1,000 things and had 1,000, and had all the success that I can reasonably have. And I have asked myself every time I have stepped into the ring, every time I have busted out a weapon, every time I've thrown a fireball, I've asked the question, could I beat you without the chain? Could I beat you without a weapon?
Yeah.
I have to do this to know. Like, I have to know. Tonight, I have to prove that I can beat you clean. And so now we describe the match together. We describe how we call back to our careers and what we say goodbye without words.
Yeah. I imagine I step through the ropes and immediately, and this is for 20 people in a parking lot of a, what was it? Peruvian food?
Portuguese barbecue?
Portuguese barbecue. I turn, it's been so many years at this point that like to have animosity isn't even how to describe our relationship. We spent longer tagging than we did in a feud, but the feud is what everyone remembers. But what I see when I look across the ring is my friend who I started my career with. And as a little homage that no one else understands, I go to tag in a third man. I don't actually go to the outside or anything like that. I don't play it up like there actually is one. I just make the motion. I make a little swat at the corner. And like everyone tried to do with The Undertaker from like 1998 to 2005, I'm trying to get you to break character in the ring a little bit.
I think like it's
I'm wearing a mask. No one can see me.
You get so close. You get so close. Like there is like I play it specifically like I play it like I'm not reacting, but like the people in the crowd that have watched us for long enough can tell like I am gripping the two corner ropes with everything that I got to stop from laughing or to stop myself from also playing up the bit. Like I am holding myself steady. And I think like for me, I think like I am it feels so easy to say that I am also paying homage to that first match, but like I think now that there are no weapons and no gimmicks and no like there's nothing for us to fall back on, all I can really do is also fall back to that like first character that I'd created and like really like kind of like grapple you, like really do a technical wrestling match to like try and like it's all I like there's no brawling for me. There is no high flying spots. Like I am keeping us grounded and like trying to prove that I can out wrestle you and on some level prove that I can make you submit just like I did when you were El Tortugo all those years ago.
And so what I picture kind of the story of this match is you're brushing something off that you haven't used in your tool belt in such a long time. But in many ways, as am I. So the story of the match goes from some kind of sloppy grappling exchanges on both of our behalves, but me being able to use my size to maybe imply like, yeah, you don't have what it takes to out wrestle me, becomes we hone in, we lock in, our throws and our grappling gets crisper. You know, we work a headlock for 6 minutes masterfully that like everyone is into, and it's just like no one expects that from the deathmatch guy. You know, we're finding it. We're getting our steps in, so to speak. We're proving like, yeah, we've got these fundamentals. We are good wrestlers. Sure, we blew up for something other than this, but like this is wrestling. This is strong style meets lucha libre. And yeah, I'll let you chime in and take it from there. I don't want to like be like, and then here's the ending.
I think the ending is I think it's like one of my favorite things, and I think this is like, it harkens back to the moment that I turned, right? It harkens back to the moment that I stopped being El Conejo, is I've got you in a Boston Crab. And like, it's an extended Boston Crab spot, but like, you can see through my mask. Like maybe my mask is also like partially torn at this point, like partially cracked and broken in the front. And so for the first time, people can really see my mouth and see my face. You can see that I am crying and screaming and like locking in this submission hold is the most painful and like agonizing thing for me. Even more like it's one of those submission holds where it looks like it's hurting me more than it's hurting you. And I am just like begging you, you know, literally metaphorically to just at this moment tap out. Like, I am begging you to let this be the moment that I finally prove that I can tap out El Tortugo if I really want to.
I am so conflicted about what the best way to tell this story is, because I feel like it says something for me because I didn't really wrestle as El Inmortal that long before I left the business, you know, maybe a year or two. Because I was a guy known for tapping out, I feel like in my last match, I have to power through and not
You got to power through. You're so right. You're so right.
Like I want to give it to you, but your betrayal fuels me to push through, and I have the ropes within reach, and all of a sudden you see me let go. Not of the ropes, but of like power. You drag me back to the middle of the ring, and I did that intentionally. Also, I can prove I can get out of this without the ropes. And I slam my fists into the mat, and I power out of the submission move. I turn it into a roll up. You kick out at 2. You turn that into a roll up. I kick out at 2. You know, we've got the crowd. We're, you know, facing off for, you know, what might be the final showdown.
And I think the final moment for what I want to pitch to you as the final moment, your ultimate victory, even as you lose your mask. I hit you with a fireball. I flash paper you right in. Like I have like, it is specifically like your ultimate triumph, because like the whole story of this match was like Beastslayer saying, I can beat you with nothing. I can beat you in a straight wrestling match. And the ultimate the ultimate failure of my character and of me as a wrestler is that in this moment, like I have thrown this, I am proving to everyone I can't do that. Like you walk away and like you, like I hit you in the face, it explodes, the crowd gasps in horror. You go down, I get the pin, 1, 2, 3. But to everyone
I gotta suggest,
watching,
though, I mean,
please,
without the chain, though, the way that you roll me up looks identical to the way you pinned me when you had to use the chain in our death match. Like it's just like it's a visual homage to that finish, down to, you know, the positioning into the ring and all that. However, my legs are crisscrossed or not or whatever, it's the same pin.
Yeah, it is. And like and so 1, 2, 3, like I have lost, like you have won even as you are removing your mask. And your mask is removed. You're going to make one last choice alone. Either describe taking swift vengeance or reconciling with your rival. Either way, you're going out on your own terms. You grab a microphone, you cut your final promo, your face in full view. Decide what your mask means to you, what your rival means to you, and if you're proud of the career that you've had.
I remove my mask. I'm facing the crowd. You know, I'm kind of leaning against the ropes, just looking out. I know you're behind me. I know you're waiting. I know that you know what you just did to have to beat me. And I know how you feel about it. And I take the mask. I hand it to you, as is the terms of the match.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell that I am some mixture of like, I'm angry that I just had a fireball in my face, but yet somehow I'm smirking because I know that mentally I just beat you. And I take the mic and I just say, are you proud of that performance? Sure, you pinned me, but you did not beat me. You did not prove what you came out here to tell everyone, that you could do it without a weapon. So I'm going to offer you 5 more minutes. Sudden death. Can you beat me? And I offer you my hand in like a, you know, like a handshake of, are you going to take it or are you not?
And I think I grab the microphone and I say very simply, I don't need 5 minutes because I know that you're the better man. You have won. And I hand your mask back to you. Like, I know you're not going to put it back on, but like I hand your mask back to you and I pull you into a giant hug.
Yeah, I think that's the show closing moment. And I lead the crowd in saying my catchphrase, nada es para siempre, pero el inmortal es para siempre. Nothing's forever, but el inmortal is forever, which sounds really weird coming from a Japanese crowd, but they tried. Yeah, I raise your hand, and I take the mic one last time after to get the last word, I guess. I don't know. But I say, what it pained me to say all those years ago, thank you. And I am thanking you because after you beat me, you carried this industry. And I raise your hand, and I try to make it about you in my final moments.
And when we see that shot of us raising each other's hands, and that's game.
Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, that ripped. That kicked ass. I'm overjoyed.
That was fun.
So let me ask you before we wrap up, what was your favorite moment from play?
I mean, I love booking myself a match. Like literally a hobby me and one of my friends had was like, hey man, you want to book a show? And we would literally just like draft 15 to 20 wrestlers each, and we would like write out full pay-per-views and stuff. And so this almost felt like I got to live out like the podcast version of that. And so specifically describing like the some of the cool spots and moments in matches or stuff where it's like it's very fulfilling to get to do that in a different medium.
I'm so happy to hear that. This was amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a blast.
Yeah, of course.
Before we wrap things up, where can people find you and your work online?
Look for Fine Dining Podcast. I kind of focus on YouTube, but I am on all podcast platforms as far as I know. If I'm not on one, send me an email and let me know that, hey, you're not here. And I will be. But yeah, Fine Dining, the search for the most mediocre restaurant in America. Again, today, part 1 of my 2-part Casa Bonita season premiere comes out. In the coming weeks, I'll be doing after Casa Bonita, I've got my 69th restaurant. So naturally I reviewed a strip club buffet. And then I've got, then I reviewed California Pizza Kitchen, and yeah, just going from there. I've got some fun ones coming out this season. I'll be going to review the IKEA cafeteria. I'm driving to Utah to hit up a place called Arctic Circle for my Christmas episode with my special guest Santa Claus. So that'll be a good one. Yeah, I'm just, I'm out here just doing things, trying to have the best podcast in the world. Trying day by day to accomplish that. So, but this was also a really fun show. So thanks for having me on. This is a blast.
This was something special. I'm really overjoyed at this. Thank you again for joining me. This was a delight. And now I'm going to throw it over to me in the future so that he can wrap things up. Take it, future me. Thanks, past me. And thanks again to Michael for coming on the show. I really think that the show is at its absolute best when 2 people get to sit down and like share in their mutual love of a genre, a setting, an art form, an experience. And I think like this is, to me, the pinnacle of that kind of an episode. Like the joy and passion that runs through that entire experience is genuinely nothing less than magical. And I'm so grateful that we got to let it happen. Be sure to pick up your own copy of Inmortal, Unmasked in the Vein event. You can find a link to that at garlicbreadandroses.itch.io or check the show notes for more information. And be sure to check out the Fine Dining Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Find the newest episode with Ifi Nwadiwe and Casa Bonita in the show notes, or follow the show on Instagram, at Fine Dining Podcast.
You can also find us on pretty much whichever social media you prefer, at Party of One Pod or Jeff Stormer, depending.
And if you enjoy the show and you want to support it, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Subscribe to our newsletter at buttondown.email/partyofonepodcast and join our Discord community at bit.ly/partyofonediscord. You can support us financially at patreon.com/JeffStormer or ko-fi.com/JeffStormer. You can give us a nice iTunes review, shout us out to a friend, give us some love on social media. You can buy some Party of One merch at bit.ly/partyofonemerch. Or if you're looking for more great podcast content, you can check out All My Fantasy Children, which is a character creation, storytelling, and world building podcast that I make with my best friend in the world, Aaron Catano Saez. We take a listener submitted prompt and spin it into an original fantasy character, populating a shared universe one story at a time. You can also check out Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast, which is an actual play about a heartless witch, a cozy house, and the many people making their homes inside. Both of those you can find wherever you get your podcasts. Party of One is, as always, produced and edited by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. Music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Mega Ran featuring the D&D Sluggers, and the Party of One logo is by Evan Rowland. If you'd like to inquire about advertising rates, coming on the show as a guest, or about press coverage of the show, you can email me at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. And unless I am mistaken, that is all we do here. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single day. Remember that self-love and self-care are radical and defiant acts of resistance. And as always, party on, everybody.